Chapter 1403. Seduce Shao Qingyuan. At this moment, Zhang Yingyue, who had been waiting for Gu Yundong, hurriedly walked towards a rouge shop not far away after leaving the shop. After entering the rouge shop, she entered the backyard. There were two people sitting there, playing chess and waiting for her. However, Prince Yixilan was the only one who was bored out of his mind. Tang Qijing, who was sitting opposite him, felt very uncomfortable. He did not want to play chess, but he had no choice but to accompany the prince. It was fine if he accompanied him, but he could not win against the prince who was playing chess randomly. He had suffered too much. When he saw Zhang Yingyue, the royal prince threw away the chess piece in his hand and immediately asked her excitedly, "How is it?" Zhang Yingyue bowed and said, "I didn't see the owner surnamed Shao that the royal prince mentioned. The owner who came is a woman with the surname Gu." A woman! Not only Yixilan, but even Tang Qijing, who was behind him, was surprised. "How can it be a woman?" "It's indeed a woman," Zhang Yingyue said, "but this boss Gu has a married woman's hairstyle. I guess she should be the wife of boss Shao." "Shao Qingyuan is married?" "Oh yes. I remember that he used to have a fiancée in the countryside." Yixilan sat back down. "In that case, it's not Shao Qingyuan who wants to recruit female workers. It's her wife?" He frowned and said to Zhang Yingyue, "Tell me everything that happened today." "Yes." Zhang Yingyue explained everything in detail, no matter how big or small it was. She was very clear. Yixilan and Tang Qijing looked at each other. There was such a way to recruit people? It sounds like Shao Qingyuan's wife is quite capable. Her actions don't seem like she's from the countryside at all. Is there a mistake? Tang Qijing also nodded at the side. Actually, he felt that not only Mrs. Shao, but even Shao Qingyuan didn't look like he came from the countryside. However, he did not dare to say this. On the other hand, Zhang Yingyue thought for a moment and said, "There has always been a very powerful old woman following behind Mrs. Shao. You mean someone is guiding her from behind?" Zhang Yingyue thought so, but she was not sure. Yixilan asked again, "Then how did you perform today? What do you think of your chances of being chosen?" Zhang Yingyue was still very confident about this. "I'll follow the royal prince's instructions. I won't stand out or fall behind. My performance is all right. I meet the standards of the female worker that Boss Gu wants. No problem." "All right, you can do it in that shop first. If you have the chance, seduce Shao Qingyuan for me. I want to tear off his hypocritical face. It's best if his wife makes a big deal out of it. At that time, let's see who else in the capital still thinks that he has an outstanding character." Zhang Yingyue was actually not very willing to do this, but she had to listen to the royal prince's orders. Her mother's illness still needed the royal prince to treat her. Hence, she lowered her head and agreed. After Yixilan sent her away, he thought about it and still felt that something was wrong. He found his guard. "Go and investigate for me. Whose shop is that? Is it the Nye family's?" "Yes, sir." The guard received the order and left. Not long after, he returned with news in the afternoon. The shop still belongs to Miss Nye, but the person who is operating the shop now is Shao Qingyuan's wife, the Gu family, and... The guard paused before saying, "Qin Wenzheng's wife. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1404. He must open a husband and wife shop. Yixilan was stunned. "You mean Qin Wenzheng?" "Yes." The guard could only find out this much for the time being. Firstly, the time was limited, and secondly, the clues were really limited. He couldn't even figure out what business the shop for. After all, few people knew. Yixilan frowned tightly. Qin Wenzheng was not to be trifled with at all. Although he did not have any conflict with Qin Wenzheng was now his cousin's favorite. Qin Wenzheng's wife had opened a shop. If he caused any trouble, Qin Wenzheng would be angry. Yixilan felt a headache coming on. No wonder Shao Qingyuan is so arrogant. It turns out that he has such a good relationship with Qin Wenzheng. So the powerful old woman that Zhang Yingyue mentioned was borrowed by the Qin family? Your Highness, wasn't Qin Wenzheng in the Xuanhe prefecture previously? Shao Qingyuan is the same. They might have known each other at that time, Tang Qijing said. Yixilan thought so too. Tang Qijing asked carefully, then, do you still want Miss Zhang to seduce Shao Qingyuan? Why not? Yixilan snorted. Shao Qingyuan can't resist the temptation because there's something wrong with his character. Qin Wenzheng can't blame me. Besides, I'm not afraid of Qin Wenzheng. I'm a dignified royal prince after all. If I don't like Shao, can't I cause trouble for him? Do I have to worry about whether there's anyone behind him? Tang Qijing echoed. That's right, that's right. Shao Qingyuan has a problem with his character. He can't blame the royal prince. Yixilan nodded. Besides, I'm helping Mrs. Shao see her husband's true colors. The corners of Tang Qijing's mouth twitched. You make it sound like you're very familiar with Mrs. Gu. Gu Yundong, who was forced to see her husband's true colors, had already packed up the name list and returned to Hatai Alley. As soon as she entered, she smelled the faint smell of medicine in the courtyard. She followed the smell and indeed saw 2 bags of herbs in the storeroom. Shao Qingyuan was checking when he heard her footsteps. He turned around and asked, "You're back? Did you recruit the female shop assistants?" "More or less. I already have someone in mind." She walked over, and Shao Wan, who was also in the warehouse, immediately pulled Tian Zhuang out, leaving the room for the 2 of them. Gu Yundong looked at the bags in front of her. "You went to collect herbs today?" "Yes. All the herbs we collected today are finished," Shao Qingyuan said. "There are a lot of good herbs in the capital." "Then when do you plan to open a herb shop in the capital?" "You have to strike while the iron is hot." With Shao Qingyuan's current reputation in the capital, his business would definitely not be bad if he opened a shop. There are no suitable shops on Jinlan Street for rent. Gu Yundong wanted to laugh. Every time this guy looked for a shop, it would be best if it was adjacent to her own shop. He had to set up a couple's shop. Truly interesting, but how could it be so easy in this world? She walked over and hugged his waist. Jinlan Street is used to open a milk tea shop. My future Gus wouldn't be open there. You can find a medicinal shop first. Later, my Gus will open near your medicinal shop. Shao Qingyuan thought about it and agreed. Although he felt that Jinlan Street was not bad, it would be best if Gus opened there. This way, they would be able to promote each other and business would be better. However, the shops on Jinlan Street were too difficult to buy. Nie Shuang had picked up a bargain. It was probably not easy for them to buy a shop in the short term. Shao Qingyuan thought that perhaps he should buy a couple of shops not far from Jinlan Street. Therefore, the next day, Shao Qingyuan went to Nanka Street, which was adjacent to Jinlan Street. As for Gu Yundong, she carried the paper with the name list and went to the shop. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1405. The last place. As soon as she reached the entrance of the shop, she saw more people than yesterday. The moment Gu Yundong appeared, everyone silently looked at her. Not only the onlookers but also the 12 women who came to apply for the job yesterday. There were also a few other women beside them. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows and walked into the shop expressionlessly, followed by Nanny Xia and Tong Shui Tao. As soon as she entered, the 12 people behind her followed. They looked a little nervous, and their hands were tightly clenched. Even Mei Hong, who had always been calm, was no exception. Gu Yundong had wanted to post the name list, but seeing that everyone was here, it was unnecessary to post it again. Since that was the case, she would announce it directly. Her gaze swept across the faces of the 12 people and finally landed on Mei Hong. Mei Hong was stunned. Her heart skipped a beat. She stared intently at Gu Yundong's mouth and heard her say her name. "Mei Hong, you've been accepted." Mei Hong's eyes lit up. Although she was a little confused about the word accept, she still understood. She had been chosen. Mei Hong immediately took a step forward and said excitedly, "Thank you, boss. I'll do my best." Gu Yundong asked her to stand on the left first before looking at the next name. Tang Lihua. Tang Lihua was the 27-year-old woman. When she heard her name, she was stunned for a moment before she raised her head and looked at her nervously. Gu Yundong smiled. To the left. To the left. That was beside Mei Hong. Tang Lihua's eyes lit up. Thank you, boss. I will do a good job too. She was actually chosen. She couldn't believe it. She clearly didn't perform very well previously. At that time, she had thought for a long time but could not think of what she was good at. When she returned, she had already given up. She was just unwilling to give up today, so she came over early to wait. Actually, she was already thinking about what other work she could do. He did not expect her to be chosen. Tang Lihua lightly walked to Mei Hong's side. When the remaining people saw this, they couldn't help but feel more confident. If even Tang Lihua could be chosen, they definitely wouldn't have a problem. After all, in their impressions, they were better than Tang Lihua. Gu Yundong looked at the next person's name. Wei Shouxiang, to the left. Wei Shouxiang was stunned. Her face was filled with surprise. She had actually been chosen? She looked at Tang Lihua, who was already standing on the left. She and Tang Lihua lived on Dafeng Street, so they knew each other. When they returned home yesterday afternoon, the two of them had already given up hope. Unexpectedly, there was a silver lining. Gu Yundong lowered her head and read the next name. Ding Rujun, to the left. She was the daughter of the family that had thought that it was an embroidery job. Her performance yesterday was not bad. She was not outstanding, but she was not bad either. She was a steady person. Ding Rujun exhaled and stood beside Mei Hong. There were already 4 of them. Gu Yundong looked at the remaining people and said, "I'll only recruit 5 people this time. There's still one last spot." What? The rest of the people looked at her in shock. Their confident expressions just now were shattered by this sentence. They were filled with disbelief. Zhang Yingyue found it even harder to understand. How could this be? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1406. I want hire a gossiper. Zhang Yingyue felt that her performance was better than the others. Although she could not compare to Mei Hong, she was only second to her. How could the boss have chosen Tang Lihua? But she was still nervously waiting for the last spot. This was not right. What criteria did Boss Gu use to select people? Gu Yundong swept her gaze across everyone's faces. At this moment, everyone regained their nervousness and held their breaths. After a moment, Gu Yundong finally fixed his gaze on her. Zhang Yingyue, on the left. Zhang Yingyue was stunned. Just now, she was still a little indignant and incomprehensible, but now that she suddenly heard her name, she could not react for a moment. It was only when Wei Shouxiang called out to her that she shuddered and quickly walked to the left. The remaining 7 people were all eliminated. Everyone looked at each other, feeling that it was a little unreal, until Gu Yundong stood up and said, "All right, the 5 people that our shop wants to recruit this time are here. The others have also performed well, but we need limited manpower. I can only apologize." As soon as he finished speaking, someone suddenly reacted and shouted, "Wait, I'm not convinced." Gu Yundong looked up at the woman who spoke. The woman panicked for a moment, but she was quickly overwhelmed by anger. She shouted, "Why? Why can't we be chosen? Why can they be chosen? That Tang Lihua doesn't know anything and doesn't even dare to speak loudly. How can she be a female shop assistant like this? Does she dare to talk to customers? That's right, there's also that Wei Shouxiang. When she came out with the tea tray earlier, she couldn't even walk steadily and knocked over the teacup. How can someone like her be chosen? Who here doesn't do better than her? Could it be that the boss pities her because she was hurt?" Another girl echoed. Tang Lihua and Wei Shouxiang, who were mentioned, were a little angry. They wanted to refute, but they couldn't say anything. Actually, they were also very puzzled. With their performance, why did the boss choose them? Gu Yundong looked at the 2 people who were talking and smiled. "Do you want to know why they were chosen but you weren't?" The 2 of them heard Gu Yundong's cold voice and felt a little flustered. However, they still nodded. "Yes. Otherwise, we won't be convinced." "All right, then I'll tell you." Gu Yundong smiled. "To be honest, I only decided not to choose others after thinking about it repeatedly. But you were eliminated by me the moment you stepped out of the shop. The two of them were stunned and asked her in disbelief, "Why?" "Because you guys talk too much. When you left the shop yesterday, everyone else left with their heads lowered. Only you guys, facing the questions of the onlookers outside, told them almost everything that happened in the shop. I want to recruit workers, not gossipers." The two of them blushed. Gossipers? How could they be gossipy? They were extroverts. As employees, weren't they very enthusiastic about everyone? Moreover, the people outside had always wondered what improper business the shop was doing, so they were helping the shop clarify. They still had credit. In short, the two of them would never admit that they could not hide anything. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1407. What's the problem? The two of them wanted to retort, but Gu Yundong smiled and asked, "Do you think I'm wrong?" As she spoke, Tong Shui Tao took a few steps forward and grabbed a thick table leg in her hand. Then she easily raised it above her head. The two of them opened their mouths, and a trace of fear flashed across their faces. The thought of not letting others have an easy time was instantly slapped away. Causing trouble? That was impossible. Didn't they see that this young lady was not to be trifled with at such a young age? Satisfied, Gu Yundong looked at the rest. They looked at each other and did not dare to speak. After a while, someone said, "Boss Gu, then? Well, leave first?" "Yes." Gu Yundong nodded. The others pushed and left quickly. The remaining ones were the 5 people chosen by Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong looked at them and asked, "Is there a problem?" Mei Hong had no problem with Gu Yundong's choice. In fact, she had seen everyone's performance yesterday and more or less guessed the reason why they were chosen. Neither did Zhang Yingyue. The remaining 3 people looked at each other and thought for a moment before asking, We want to know why we were chosen." "It's very simple, because you work nimbly and cleanly. I want to recruit people who work. If you can do the work well, it's better than anything. It doesn't matter if you're timid. It doesn't matter if you don't dare to speak loudly. I'll arrange your work according to the situation." It wasn't just the front desk. Logistics also needed manpower. Tang Lihua was timid, but when she was boiling water yesterday, she carefully wiped the cup clean. After the cup was used up, she rinsed it twice and heated it with hot water before returning it to its original position. She was the only one who could do this. Gu Yundong had even asked her why she had used hot water to boil it. Tang Lihua said that her man was sick and could not get out of bed. He had to drink medicine every day. A doctor had suggested that she use hot water to boil the teacups, bowls, and chopsticks that her man had used. Hence, she naturally did so yesterday. Gu Yundong did not say anything after hearing that, but he had already decided on her in his heart. As for Wei Xiaoxiang, she almost tripped while holding the tray, but she tried her best to stabilize the tray. As a result, the teacup overturned, but the tea in the cup only splashed onto the back of her hand. The person standing beside her was not affected at all. As for Ding Rujun, perhaps because she was good at embroidery, she was used to sitting for a few hours and was very patient. There was also Zhang Yingyue. Initially, Gu Yundong did not want to recruit her. What was the point of recruiting her if not to cause trouble for himself? However, Nanny Xia felt that it was not impossible to recruit this person. Zhang Yingyue was smart. The shop needed such a person. As for whether she would cause trouble, Nanny Xia expressed that she could guide her back to the right path and see what she wanted to do. After all, even if Zhang Yingyue was eliminated this time, who knew if she would find another opportunity to do something? Since Gu Yundong had chosen Nanny Xia to be the female shopkeeper, she naturally trusted her. That was why these 5 people were chosen in the end. Actually, there were still a few people. Their shop still had the backyard and the second floor. Other than the waiters, they also needed help from the kitchen. Fortunately, Madame Gu would find 2 people to help. Gu Yundong looked at them again. "Are there any other questions? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1408. Salary. The five of them looked at each other. Mei Hong took a deep breath and took a step forward. I want to know. How much is our salary? Gu Yundong glanced at her and Mei Hong became a little nervous. However, she had no choice. She still had her younger siblings to support at home. She cared a lot about money. Gu Yundong smiled and said, for the salary, it will be set at 5 taels a month. If your job is done well, it will increase in the future. In addition, there will be gifts distributed during the festivals. Every season, the shop will prepare 2 sets of clothes for you to change into. Just as Gu Yundong finished speaking, joy flashed across the faces of the 5 people in front of her. A monthly salary of 5 taels of silver? That was much more than some shop assistants. Moreover, the boss said that if they did well in the future, the salary would increase. There were even gifts and clothes. This treatment was not inferior to that of those large restaurants. In fact, they had long wanted to ask about the salary, but they did not dare to. It was not easy for women to find work. It was not easy for them to find a stable job. No one wanted to give up. It was better to have less money than to have work today but not tomorrow. However, now that they heard that the salary was more than they had imagined, how could they not be surprised? However, Gu Yundong still had a but. As you can see, the shop is still under repair. It will probably take another month or so for it to open for business, so you won't be able to start work in the short term. However, it's not like you don't have anything to do. In this month, you have to train first to understand how to receive customers, understand what kind of business our shop is doing, and grasp the most basic service skills. Don't worry, they'll still pay you. The 5 of them were a little surprised. She actually gave them a salary for training them? They had never heard of anyone being paid as an apprentice. However, it had to be said that this was what they needed. Without any income for a month, it was difficult for them to maintain their lives. Hence, the 5 of them nodded. Yes, boss, we understand. All right, I have 5 contracts here. Mei Hong knows how to read. You can read it to everyone. If you have no objections, sign it and put your thumbprint on it first. Gu Yundong's recruitment conditions and some things to take note of were really different from ordinary employers. At this moment, she had even written the contract. Mei Hong went forward and read the contract. In fact, the contract was very simple. Gu Yundong asked everyone to keep the matter in the shop a secret. Whoever leaked it would have to pay compensation. There were also some other rules and regulations. However, what surprised Mei Hong and the others was that this contract not only restricted them, but also the owner. Gu Yundong could not fire them for no reason. If there was no valid reason, she would have to compensate them for 2 months of work. They had never seen a boss write a contract to restrain herself. For some reason, they felt relieved. They felt that working in such a shop would be very warm and reassuring. Everyone stepped forward. Those who were literate signed on it, and those who were illiterate pressed their fingerprints on it. Zhang Yingyue hesitated for a moment when she was pressing her thumbprint. She looked at the terms with a complicated expression. It was unknown what she was thinking. After a long time, she pressed her fingers down heavily. After the matter was settled, Gu Yundong put away the contract and said, from tomorrow onwards, go to the Shao residence at 25 Hatai Alley. I will arrange for you to study. Yes, boss. Gu Yundong nodded and left with Nanny Xia and Tong Shuetao. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1409. Sister-in-law you wants to go. The 5 people in the shop looked at each other. No one knew who laughed first, but the others couldn't help but smile. Mei Hong said, in the future, we will work together in the shop. It's not easy for women to find work outside. Let's cherish it. As she spoke, she glanced at Zhang Yingyue. Zhang Yingyue did not notice that the others were still excited. When she heard this, she nodded heavily. After chatting for a while, they left the shop feeling relaxed and went home happily. Zhang Yingyue was the same. Her footsteps were hurried, but she still walked towards the rouge shop she had gone to yesterday. However, the moment she stepped into the rouge shop, she stopped in her tracks. She thought of what Gu Yundong had said and the contract that was fair to both parties. She hesitated. After a while, she stepped through the door and said to the shopkeeper of the rouge shop, "Tell the royal prince that I've been chosen." With that, Zhang Yingyue left in a hurry without saying anything else. The shopkeeper opened his mouth and wanted to ask something, but all he could see was her back. Gu Yundong did not know that a certain someone had started to waver even before she was prepared to train her. After sending Nanny Xia back, she saw that it was still early, so she went to the market to buy cloth, cotton, and other things before returning to Hatai Alley. The cotton was meant to be used to make clothes for the girls. She had agreed to give them clothes for the 4 seasons. Now that the weather was very cold in this season, she naturally had to hurry up and prepare clothes for them. She also saw that their family conditions should not be very good. Although they were dressed cleanly and tried their best to face her in the best posture, their clothes were very thin. When they stood at the entrance of the shop, they were still trembling. Among the 5 of them, Gu Yundong only knew Mei Hong's situation. According to Nanny Xia, Mei Hong was indeed from the palace. When the late emperor was in power a few years ago, the number of palace maids in the palace increased greatly, to the point of overflowing. Later on, when the new emperor took the throne, he issued a series of measures, including the regulation of letting palace maids out of the palace. Mei Hong was 25 years old and was also among the palace maids released from the palace. She had previously served a noble who liked to drink tea, so Mei Hong had learned a little from him. No matter what, she had a skill. Nanny Xia thought that with her ability, she wouldn't end up like this. However, she had previously heard from her that there were young siblings in the family. Presumably, this was the reason. However, life was indeed not easy. Gu Yundong thought highly of Mei Hong. She might become a store manager or something in the future. The capital was so big, and there were so many wives of aristocratic families. She could totally open a second one. Gu Yundong felt that her idea was feasible. Now that she had recruited someone today, her mood improved. Unexpectedly, just as she was about to enter with many bags, she suddenly saw Mrs. Yu coming over with a vexed expression. Gu Yundong asked curiously, "What happened to sister-in-law Yu?" When Mrs. Yu saw her, she immediately ran over and asked, "Sister Yundong, do you know that there's a shop on Jinlan Street that recruits female workers?" Gu Yundong: "I think so. Why?" Mrs. Yu was even more vexed. I didn't go out yesterday and missed this matter. I originally wanted to ask if they wanted me. I'm a diligent person, but I just went over and they've already finished recruiting. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 14:10. Nanny Xia expresses her suspicion. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. She let Tong Shuitao carry the things into the courtyard. She turned around and looked Mrs. Yu up and down. Mrs. Yu felt uncomfortable under her gaze and asked, What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Sister-in-law Yu wants to work in that shop too? Isn't that so? Mrs. Yu said. You know my family's situation. The children are all grown up. I just want to find something to do to help cover the family's expenses so that the children can live a better life. Most importantly, with her salary, wouldn't her status in the family rise? Gu Yundong stroked her chin. Actually, she had a good impression of Mrs. Yu. Although sister-in-law Yu was quite eloquent, she said what she should say and did not leak a word that she should not say. For example, her family had a lot of troubles. She and her youngest sister-in-law did not like each other. But outside, she had never said anything bad about this sister-in-law and did not let others know that their family was at odds. If Gu Yundong did not live next door, she would not know so much. Mrs. Yu was more or less the kind of person who would settle her family matters at home. When facing outsiders, the family should be united against outsiders. Gu Yundong felt that she was actually a very perceptive person with an outgoing personality. She was really diligent. Anyway, every time Gu Yundong saw her, Mrs. Yu would be working. Even if she came to talk to Gu Yundong, she would be sewing with a basket. Now that sister-in-law Yu had taken the initiative to say that she wanted to find work in a shop, Gu Yundong was quite happy. Hence, She smiled and said to Mrs. Yu, "Sister-in-law, if you really want to go to that shop to be a female shop assistant, come to my house at 7 in the morning tomorrow." Sister-in-law Yu was stunned for a moment, but she quickly reacted. She looked at Gu Yundong excitedly. "Sister Yundong, do you have connections? You can let me enter that shop to be a shop assistant? Don't worry. Introduce me. I promise not to embarrass you. I'm very diligent." "I know. Sister-in-law, remember to come tomorrow." With that, Gu Yundong waved her hand and entered the house. Sister-in-law Yu nodded repeatedly and was so excited that she wanted to cry out. However, when she thought of her troublesome sister-in-law at home, she immediately pulled a long face and walked in dejectedly. When Gu Yundong returned home, Shao Qingyuan was not back yet. He should still be looking for a shop. With a few more servants in the house, Gu Yundong did not have to worry about food. She wrote down the next plan and some food she wanted to prepare in the room. Not long after, Shao Qingyuan returned. The moment he entered, he gave her 2 contracts. "I've bought the shops. They're on Nanku Street. The 2 shops are diagonally opposite each other and not far away." Gu Yundong poured him a cup of tea before sitting down to read. "They're quite big." "Yes, they'll bring you to take a look another day." "Okay." Gu Yundong also told him about the manpower. "The Qin residents will send 2 people over tomorrow. When the time comes, they will be handed over to Nanny Xia. She's good at training, so I can relax a little." Shao Qingyuan rubbed her head and said softly, "I went to the Song residence today. Bai Jian can already get out of bed." Gu Yundong was stunned. Her eyes lit up. "All right, let's go and eat first." Auntie Tian had already served the food. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan rested early after eating. The next day, Nanny Xia arrived just as Gu Yundong woke up. Looking at the woman who kept yawning, the corners of Nanny Xia's mouth could not help but twitch. She expressed deep doubt about her decision. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 14:11. Gu Yundong has a way of managing her husband. Gu Yundong gave Nanny Xia a dry laugh and called out, "Nanny, have you eaten? Do you want to eat something?" "No need." Nanny Xia sneered. She turned around and saw Shao Qingyuan. She nodded slightly. Shao Qingyuan draped a cloak over Gu Yundong before sitting opposite her and starting to eat. Nanny Xia narrowed her eyes slightly. This woman was quite good at controlling her husband. Gu Yundong ate slowly, and Nanny Xia was getting impatient. She wanted to remind him, but Shao Qingyuan, who was opposite her, spoke first. "Eat slowly. It's still early." Nanny Xia was speechless. She'd better go outside and get some fresh air. Nanny Xia felt that it was too late. Gu Yundong should have let those girls come earlier. That way, she would not have to sit here alone and endure it. However, what Nanny Xia did not know was that Mei Hong and the other girls were already standing at the entrance of the Shao residence. They had all come in advance, but when they thought of the time that Gu Yundong had mentioned, they could not knock on the door and disturb her, so they simply waited at the door. Mrs. Yu had also left early. Unexpectedly, just as she was about to knock on the Shao family's door, she saw 5 people standing there silently. She did not know what they were trying to do. Mrs. Yu was shocked and quickly went forward. She asked in confusion, "Who are you looking for? The Shao family?" Mei Hong said, "Yes, we're looking for Boss Gu." "Boss Gu?" Mrs. Yu quickly recalled that Sister Yundong had said that her family was going to open a shop. But shouldn't she be called Lady Boss? Unable to figure it out, Mrs. Yu shook her head and asked, "Then why don't you go in?" "We." Before Mei Hong could finish speaking, the door in front of her was suddenly opened. Uncle Tian only opened the door to take a look when he heard the sound outside. He did not know the others, but he knew Mrs. Yu. Uncle Tian looked at Mrs. Yu. "You guys are..." Mrs. Yu hurriedly said, "I'm here to look for Sister Yundong. She told me yesterday that she wanted me to come in the morning. Look, I'm 15 minutes early." Uncle Tian nodded and looked at the others. Zhang Yingyue said, "Me too." Uncle Tian looked at the number of people and understood in his heart. They should be the female workers that Madam had mentioned, right? He quickly moved half of his body aside. Come in first. Madam has instructed you to enter directly when you arrive. Mei Hong and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Mrs. Yu was the first to enter. Gu Yundong had already finished her meal. When she heard the commotion, she followed Nanny Xia over. Mei Hong and the others quickly went forward respectfully. Boss Gu, you're here. Gu Yundong looked at the five of them. Yes, they were in good spirits. She stepped back, revealing Nanny Xia behind her. She introduced, "This is Nanny Xia. She used to serve the nobles in the palace. Now, she's the shopkeeper of our shop. From today onwards, she will teach you some basic etiquette." Other than Mei Hong, everyone else widened their eyes. A nanny from the palace? Gu Yundong said, Nanny Xia is very capable. Previously, many big families wanted to invite her to the residence to be a nanny. Now that she's here to teach you, you're lucky. You have to study hard in the next month. It's good for you. Yes, boss. The few of them were faintly excited. Only Mrs. Yu, who was at the side, had a dumbfounded expression. Gu Yundong smiled and turned to her. Sister-in-law, don't you want to be a female shop assistant at the new shop on Jinlan Street? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 14:12. Another female worker, Mrs. Yu, nodded blankly. Yes, yes. Gu Yundong pointed at Mei Hong and the rest. They are the 5 new female workers that the shop recruited yesterday. You can learn from them in the future. Mrs. Yu blinked again, and suddenly reacted. She immediately looked straight at Gu Yundong. Yundong, Sister Yundong, do you mean that the shop was opened by you? Yes, I opened it. Gu Yundong smiled. Sister-in-law Yu, do you still want to go? Mrs. Yu was a little stunned, but when she heard this, she immediately nodded reflexively. I want to go, I really want to go. Gu Yundong nodded. In that case, Mrs. Yu, come in with me. I'll tell you about the situation in the shop and let's sign a contract. After saying that, she turned around and entered the central room. Mrs. Yu followed her in a daze. Gu Yundong told her the basic situation of the shop, which was similar to what Mei Hong and the others had said. Then she took out the contract as well. Mrs. Yu could not read much, so Gu Yundong read the contents of the contract. Mrs. Yu understood, but it was precisely because she understood that she was surprised. Sister Yundong, you'll be at a disadvantage with this contract. Is there a reason for you to compensate if you want to fire the workers? Gu Yundong could not help but laugh. I know what I'm doing. If sister-in-law you thinks that there's no problem, you can put your thumbprint here. However, should sister-in-law you go back and discuss with her family? No need, no need. I've already spoken to my husband. He'll press the thumbprint now. After hearing Gu Yundong's words yesterday, Mrs. Yu felt that with her introduction, she would definitely enter that shop to work. Hence, she had already spoken to her husband. She did not expect that this shop would directly belong to Sister Yundong. Sister-in-law Yu was very excited now. There were 5 taels of silver for her salary. It was so much. Moreover, if she worked hard, it would increase. When she had money in her hands, she would not have to squeeze in this courtyard with her entire family. She could even send her son to school. Mrs. Yes' original name was Yu Rong, and she was about the same age as Tang Lihua. She had an outgoing personality and was easy to get along with. As soon as she signed the contract, she immediately changed her way of addressing him. Boss, he'll go out first and go home to inform my man. Then, he'll come over and learn from shopkeeper Xia. Okay. Mrs. Yu left in a hurry. Gu Yundong packed up the contract and walked out of the central room. Outside, Nanny Xia had already given them a lecture. Not only Mei Hong and the others, but also the 3 servants that Gu Yundong's family had bought. The 8 of them did not dare to slack off in the slightest in the face of Nanny Xia's aura. Their expressions were as serious as primary school students listening to class. Gu Yundong stood under the corridor and listened for a moment before turning around to go to the warehouse. Shao Qingyuan was sorting out the herbs. When he saw her come in, He handed her a box in his hand. "You'll keep this for me." Yundong glanced at him and smiled. "Sure." She knew that the medicinal ingredients in the box should be good stuff. Now, the two of them had a tacit understanding that the most valuable things were with Yundong. "I'm going to the Song residence later. Bai Zian's condition is rare, so I'll take this opportunity to take a look too." "Okay." When the herbs were almost sorted out, Shao Qingyuan tidied up and walked into the courtyard. Nanny Xia happened to lead Mei Hong and the others to the kitchen. Zhang Yingyue was at the back. When she looked up, she saw Shao Qingyuan. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 14:13. Women Need Money. Zhang Yingyue was slightly stunned and took another look. It was only when someone called out to her in front that she hurriedly followed. However, her mind was still replaying the scene just now. That person was in an intimate position with Boss Gu and was very close to him. The way he looked at Boss Gu was abnormally gentle. He should be Shao Qingyuan, right? Was this person the one the royal prince had asked her to seduce? Thinking of Shao Qingyuan's face, Zhang Yingyue suddenly felt that he was not that repulsive. At least, he was not the kind of person who was rude and achieved nothing in his 50s. Instead, he was exceptionally elegant and handsome, and he had an aura that ordinary people did not have. Zhang Yingyue took a deep breath and smiled. Unexpectedly, in the next moment, Nanny Xia's slightly stern voice sounded in his ear. "Zhang Yingyue, come and take this tray." Zhang Yingyue suddenly came back to her senses. When she met Nanny Xia's penetrating gaze, her body suddenly trembled. She quickly went forward and carried the tray. Nanny Xia raised her eyelids and led everyone to a room not far away. This room was specially vacated by Yundong for their lessons. At this moment, Mei Hong and the others followed Nanny Xia into the room with trays, cups, rags, water, and brooms. On the other side, Yundong sent Shao Qingyuan out. Unexpectedly, just as she turned around and was about to return to the courtyard, a carriage drove over. Yundong looked up and saw Madame Gu coming down. She was accompanied by an old woman and a maidservant. When she saw Yundong, Madame Gu immediately brought them over with a smile. "I'm late. Has Nanny Xia started?" "It's not too late. Nanny Xia is about to start," Yundong said with a smile as she welcomed Madame Gu in. Mrs. Gu said, "Can you show me?" Yundong led them to the prepared room. As soon as they reached the door, they heard Nanny Xia's low and serious voice. "If you want to be bold, the most important thing is to be confident. You're people with jobs now. You can earn money yourself. You earn more than the workers in ordinary shops. With money in your hands, you have the right to make decisions at home and outside. Thinking about it this way, don't you think you can hold your head high?" Yundong and Madame Gu looked at each other and could not help but laugh. That's right. Nowadays, many women had very low statuses because they did not have money or power. As long as they could control money or power, they would immediately be confident enough to speak. 5 taels of silver. Even in the capital, many ordinary people might not be able to earn this money in a month. Yundong glanced at the old women and maids behind Madame Gu. "Are they the people you found to help at New Tea Pavilion?" "Yes, old Madame Gao can help in the kitchen. Her culinary skills are not bad to begin with. Achu will be entertaining guests in the front hall. Both of them are trustworthy people." As they spoke, the two of them bowed slightly to Yundong. "Greetings, Master Gu." Yundong smiled and nodded. He reached out and knocked on the door. Nanny Xia's voice immediately stopped. Yundong let them in. "Shopkeeper Xia, I'll leave them to you." Nanny Xia glared at her. After letting someone in, she closed the door and locked Yundong and Madame Gu outside. Yundong shrugged and led Madame Gu to the reception pavilion for tea. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 14:14. Early internship. Madame Gu smiled and asked, "Nanny Xia is not bad, right?" "Yes, I think I can be a hands-off boss now." "Don't. The shop still depends on you for promotion." Gu Yundong understood what she meant and her eyes lit up. "Are you going to invite those noble ladies and young ladies to the Qin residence as guests?" Madame Gu nodded. "Yes, the post has already been sent out." Freeway. Bien, au velci, om. When? In half a month. Madame Gu said, "I thought that after half a month, the people here will be almost done training. It's a good opportunity for them to practice at the banquet. Isn't this a rare opportunity? Besides," she paused, and a sweet smile flashed across her face. "Moreover, Wenzheng will be back in half a month. I'm afraid more guests will come when he comes back. You can also call Shao Qingyuan away. You might even be able to see Marquis Huayin." Gu Yundong had already met Marquis Huayin's wife, but she had yet to meet Marquis Huayin. If Marquis Huayin came, his wife and second madame might come too. In that case, there was no need to wait for their shop to open before meeting them. Gu Yundong immediately began to look forward to it. "All right, in half a month, I'll bring Mei Hong and the others to test it." Madame Gu then told Gu Yundong about the shops. She also managed a few shops. However, there were trustworthy shopkeepers in the shops and they had been in charge for a few years, so she usually checked the accounts and did not interfere. Now that she was working with Gu Yundong, she became interested and instantly became energetic. After sending Madame Gu off, Gu Yundong went to inform Nanny of the situation so that Nanny could adjust the time. In the following days, Gu Yundong began to get busy. She had to personally teach the few people in charge of the kitchen how to make milk tea and other snacks. Madame Gao, who was sent by Madame Gu, was indeed very useful. She learned very quickly. She seemed to be very interested in the production of milk tea. After seeing it once, she could draw inferences. Gu Yundong did not need to worry. Then it was time to reserve the ingredients. Madame Gu went to buy the milk. There were also some flour tea. When Shao Qingyuan was collecting herbs, he even bought them for her. Furthermore, the quality was very high. Gu Yundong would visit the shop from time to time. Although Carpenter Pang was meticulous, most of the shop had been renovated over the past few days. Carpenter Pang was very happy because Gu Yundong had said that after the shop in New Tea Pavilion was installed, there were 2 other shops that she wanted to ask for his help in renovating. Initially, he thought that there would be no business in the winter. He did not expect a few big orders to come the moment he arrived. These 3 shops were completely worth Carpenter Pang's salary for more than a year. He felt that he could repair the house properly after the new year and make 2 sets of warm clothes for his 2 disciples. Half a month later, it was finally time for the Qin family's banquet. The day before the banquet, Gu Yundong went to the classroom early in the morning and said to the 11 people who were no longer the same as half a month ago, "Everyone has been following Nanny for so many days. I think you should know enough. The shop hasn't opened yet, but there will be a banquet in the Qin residence tomorrow. At that time, the banquet will mainly be filled with milk tea and snacks sold by our shop to entertain the madams and young ladies attending the banquet. This is an opportunity to show the results of your half a month of training. I will bring you to the Qin residence tomorrow. I hope that everyone will perform well. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 14:15. She was instigated by someone as soon as he finished speaking. Everyone present was stunned. This had never been mentioned before. Why did she suddenly say that they were going to the Qin residence to entertain guests? All of them immediately became nervous. Mei Hong was fine. She was originally serving nobles in the palace. She had even seen the emperor and empress, so she was naturally not afraid. Old Madame Gao and Ah Chu had originally been serving the Qin residence. They knew the Qin residence better than anyone present, so they were not worried. As for Madame Zhou and the other 2 servants in Gu Yundong's residence, although they were nervous, their main venue was in the kitchen, so they felt more at ease. The remaining people's palms were sweating. Nanny Xia's mouth twitched when she saw this. She shouted, "Have you forgotten what I told you on the first day? What's there to be afraid of? You're just serving tea and water. Didn't you all perform very well in front of me previously? It's the same tomorrow. Furthermore, Nanny Xia glanced at Gu Yundong. With Boss Gu around, there's nothing for you to worry about. Even if you offend a noble, she will take care of you. Gu Yundong was speechless. Nanny Xia, even if you're giving them courage, they don't have to dig a hole for me to jump into. I'm just a weak, helpless, and pitiful woman. I don't dare to offend so many people. However, Nanny Xia was encouraging everyone, so she obediently shut her mouth. However, from the corner of his eye, she still saw a strange expression on someone's face. Zhang Yingyue. Zhang Yingyue was different from sister-in-law Yu. She had interacted with the royal prince Yi's island, so she more or less knew about that class of people. She knew that with Gu Yundong's status, it was impossible for her to protect them. Therefore, she was not encouraged by Nanny Xia at all. Instead, she was even more worried and afraid because she knew Gu Yundong's identity. No, that wasn't right. She still had the royal prince. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. After half a month of observation, she more or less knew Zhang Yingyue's motive. Over the past few days, Zhang Yingyue had been wanting to go to the front courtyard. She wanted to see Shao Qingyuan. However, Shao Qingyuan was not at home most of the time. Even if he was, he would not come to the classroom here. Gu Yundong had originally wanted to chase Zhang Yingyue out after seeing her motive. This girl could have other motives, but she could not covet her man. However, just as she was about to take action, Nanny Xia told her that Zhang Yingyue should have been instigated by someone. Instigated by someone. For some reason, Gu Yundong thought of the Cui family. She did not have many enemies, and Cui Lan was one of them. Her love for Shao Qingyuan had turned into hatred. It was possible that she would find another person to seduce Shao Qingyuan. However, it was strange that Zhang Yingyue had not contacted anyone for the past half a month. Cui Lan, who had been engaged since a few days ago, seemed to have forgotten about them. Gu Yundong was confused, especially after Zhang Yingyue failed to meet Shao Qingyuan twice. She began to learn from Nanny Xia seriously. This person was crazy. Gu Yundong exhaled and turned to leave. For you. No. They'll. Calm. The remaining people immediately surrounded Nanny Xia and began to ask about what they needed to pay attention to tomorrow. Before they left at night, Gu Yundong asked Tong Shuitao to bring a large basket over. Everyone looked at each other in confusion. Unexpectedly, Gu Yundong bent down and took out a cotton shirt from the basket. She looked at everyone. When I signed the contract, I said that everyone would have 2 sets of clothes every season when they work in the shop. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 14:16. Cotton clothes. Everyone was elated when they heard this. They looked at the cotton shirt in Gu Yundong's hand in anticipation and disbelief. Initially, they thought that they would only have clothes when they officially started work. They did not expect to have them now. Gu Yundong had given them the measurements on the first day of their arrival. The cotton clothes were made by a woman and her daughter from a nearby family who specialized in mending clothes for others. They had completed them in the past 10 days. However, there was only 1 set for the time being. It was enough to wear now. Gu Yundong asked them to continue making the second set. When the shop opened, they could take it and change it. She looked at the label on the shirt and began to call out, "Mei Hong." Mei Hong hurried forward. Gu Yundong handed her the clothes. "Try it inside." "Yes." Mei Hong took the clothes into the house and came out in a short while. Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw this. Not to mention anything else, the style was very novel. They were also wearing cotton clothes. Although the clothes were thin, their upper bodies were bloated. Most of the styles were similar, and the most important thing was to keep warm. They also had to wear 2 thin clothes under the cotton clothes, making them look really ugly. However, Mei Hong's cotton clothes were light green now. She looked even more elegant. Coupled with her slightly raised high collar and tight waist, her back was straight. She looked young and beautiful. The cotton clothes that Gu Yundong had given them were made according to their sizes. Nowadays, many people would deliberately make larger clothes. However, the female staff of New Tea Pavilion gave people the impression that they had to be energetic, nimble, and clean. Clothes that fit them were very important. Gu Yundong was very satisfied with what Mei Hong was wearing. She picked up the next item. Yu Rong. Mrs. Yu quickly went forward and touched the clothes lovingly. Not only did the clothes look good, but the material was also good. It was very thick to the touch. She did not need to wear it to know that it would definitely be very warm. Mrs. Yu had a child at home, so she would usually think of putting on new clothes for the child. However, in the past half a month, Nanny Xia had also mentioned that these clothes represented the shop's reputation. If they were dirty, it would affect the shop's reputation. If the shop's reputation fell because of this and was criticized, she would be fined. In serious cases, she might even lose her job. Therefore, the people here instantly gave up on the idea of letting others wear their clothes. The clothes were distributed one by one. Gu Yundong looked at them and found that they all fit in very well. When she was recruiting, Gu Yundong had also taken a look at their appearance and height. Now that they were standing in a row, it was very pleasing to the eye. Gu Yundong nodded in satisfaction. Very good. You can all go back first today. Rest early tonight. We will gather here at dawn tomorrow. I will bring you to the Qin residence then. Yes, boss. Everyone quickly agreed. Then they entered the house and changed out of their cotton clothes. They cherished the clothes and folded them before putting them away. They left the Shao family one after another. Only Ding Rujun walked last. After some thought, she placed the clothes in the basket. When she met Gu Yundong's puzzled gaze, Ding Rujun said in embarrassment, "My house is a little messy. I'm afraid that my clothes will get dirty when I bring them back, so I want to leave them here first and wear them tomorrow. Okay, boss?" Gu Yundong nodded and smiled. Of course. She also had some understanding of Ding Rujun's situation. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 14-17. Ding Rujun's situation. The Ding family's conditions were average, but her father had married a stepmother. Her stepmother did not treat her very well, but because Ding Rujun had embroidery skills, the money she earned from embroidery every month allowed the family to eat 2 more meals of meat. On account of the fact that she earned money, her stepmother did not abuse her. However, Ding Rujun did not have any time to rest. She had to work hard at home the entire day. She was quite smart. She did not embroider quickly to avoid raising her stepmother's appetite. Occasionally, she would even leave a few pieces of handkerchief and ask someone to help her sell them for money in the cloth shop. However, her stepmother did not like her and despised her for not earning enough. She wanted to bring her to the embroidery workshop. It was said that the embroidery workshop provided food and accommodation, and the money she earned every month was quite a lot. Ding Rujun did not want to enter the embroidery workshop. It was fine to do embroidery now, but if she did it for too long, her eyes would not work. Back then, her biological mother had damaged her eyes like this and her body had fallen ill. She did not want to repeat the same mistake. Therefore, when her stepmother brought her to the embroidery workshop, she deliberately hid her talents. The embroidery workshop did not fancy her. However, her stepmother was still unwilling to give up. When she heard that Jinlan Street was recruiting, she immediately urged Father Ding to send Ding Rujun over. Father Ding really brought her to Jinlan Street. Ding Rujun was unwilling at first and only planned to go through the motions. She thought that if her embroidery skills could not pass, others would not want her. However, when she entered, she realized that the shop was not hiring an embroidery maid, but a female shop assistant. Moreover, according to Boss Gu, the guests were all women. Ding Rujun immediately understood that she had to seize this opportunity, so she performed very well and entered the shop. Her stepmother was not happy, but when she heard that she had signed a contract and would earn 5 taels of silver every month, she reluctantly agreed. After Gu Yundong found out about this, he spoke to Ding Rujun alone. She said, "Now that your family knows that your salary is 5 taels, I think you have to hand them over. However, I've said before that if you do well in the future, they'll give you a raise in salary. When the time comes, you don't have to tell your family. I won't tell you either. Just take it." Ding Rujun was stunned for a moment when she heard that. Then, she became slightly excited. Her eyes lit up as she looked at Gu Yundong gratefully. Therefore, this time, Ding Rujun also proposed to keep the clothes in the Shao family for safekeeping. She was worried that her stepmother would take it away after she took it back. Gu Yundong agreed and Ding Rujun left. The next day, as expected, everyone arrived early in the morning. Gu Yundong rented 2 carriages to send everyone over. Nanny Xia led them in through the back door of the Qin family. She went to see Qin Wenzheng with Shao Qingyuan. Qin Wenzheng had just returned the day before yesterday. When he found out that Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan were coming over, he waited in the study with a straight face early in the morning. However, after waiting for a long time, no one came. Qin Wenzheng was a little tired from waiting. He couldn't help but open the study door and go out to take a look. Then he heard a familiar voice laughing under the corridor. "Is that so? In that case, you know a lot of words. Speaking of which, your Mr. Qin used to be a teacher. Not to mention anything else, he's very experienced in teaching. If you learn more from him, you might even be able to become an elementary scholar." "Sister Gu, you must be joking. I'm not talented in studying and am already so old. I'm already very satisfied that I can read. How would I dare to take the elementary scholar examination? You don't have to belittle yourself. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 14:18. Qin Wenzheng's official aura ahem. Qin Wenzheng coughed heavily and finally interrupted the few people who were chatting about the past. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan looked up. Qin Shu, who was standing opposite them, immediately stood up and glanced at Qin Wenzheng guiltily. He really didn't do it on purpose. He had been by Mr. Qin's side for several months, and he had learned a lot. He also knew that he shouldn't have stood under the corridor and chatted with people when guests came. However, he was too excited to see Gu Yundong. In addition, Sister Gu greeted him and asked about his recent situation. He could not help but keep talking and forget where he was. Qin Wenzheng snorted softly, and Qin Shu lowered his head even more. Only then did Qin Wenzheng look at Gu Yundong. "Come in. It's cold outside, but you guys are chatting so happily outside. We just exchanged a few words." Gu Yundong laughed. She was also very happy to see Qin Shu. Speaking of which, she could be considered the middleman between Qin Shu and Qin Wenzheng. She treated Qin Shu as her younger brother. When she saw him, she naturally wanted to ask, afraid that he was not good in any way. However, she forgot for a moment that Qin Wenzheng was no longer the teacher Qin from Fengkai County. He was an official of the imperial court, and the people around him had to follow the rules. Shao Qingyuan brought her into the study. Qin Wenzheng got someone to serve tea and sat back in his seat. He looked at the two of them and raised his eyebrows. "Are you used to the life in the capital? Did you encounter any trouble? If you do, you can look for me. I haven't seen you for a few months." Master Qin is becoming more and more authoritative. Gu Yundong smiled and drank a cup of tea. Qin Wenzheng looked at Shao Qingyuan. "Control your wife. She's already married, but she's still so immature." "How am I immature? You sound so jealous." Gu Yundong was speechless. How was she jealous? Qin Wenzheng, don't imagine too much. "Yundong is in charge of my family," Shao Qingyuan replied as he sat beside Gu Yundong. Qin Wenzheng choked. After a while, he waved his hand. "Forget it. How can you be so self-righteous when your status is not up to standard? Pretend I didn't say anything." Seeing that Gu Yundong was about to say something, he quickly changed the topic. "By the way, I heard my wife talk about you guys when I came back. Did you make any progress?" Speaking of this, Gu Yundong's attention was indeed diverted. She frowned slightly and sighed. "No, I had high expectations of the Marquis Huayin, but the last time I saw the Marquise, it didn't seem likely. Today, the Marquise will bring second Madame over. I wonder if she has gained anything." Qin Wenzheng lowered his eyes and said, "I heard that Shao Qingyuan's parents are a match made in heaven. They're both very good-looking, right?" Gu Yundong nodded. "Marquis Huayin and his brother are indeed handsome. I've never seen second Madame, but I think it might not be her." Shao Qingyuan frowned. What do you mean? I think you've all asked around. The Marquis Huayin did not lose his child more than 20 years ago. Of course, it's also possible that they hid this matter and outsiders have no way of knowing. However, as far as I know, Second Master Shao does have a son who's the same age as you. However, when you disappeared, Second Madam happened to bring the child to her parents' house and was not in the capital. Therefore, the couple Liang Zi saw holding Shao Qingyuan was unlikely to be Second Madam. Shao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong looked at each other. Qin Wenzheng sighed secretly. How could it be so easy to find out something that had happened for more than 20 years? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible.